Did India have an unfair advantage in the Champions Trophy? Every other team had to adapt to different venues, different pitch conditions, and different environments. But India, they played every single game in Dubai on the same ground under the same conditions.
That kind of consistency is a dream for any team. But what if they didn't have it? Would India have still dominated, or would their campaign have taken a completely different turn? In this episode, we break down this major what if, exploring how changing venues could have impacted India's performance, their matchups, and even the entire outcome of the tournament.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Reverse Sweep Show. As you can see, I'm still wearing the India blue. Didn't want to jinx it before last episode because we were recording before the final, but now we can confidently wear it, knowing that we are the Champions Trophy winners. So it's been a great week on the high of winning the tournament, another ICC trophy in the bag. So it's been good and happy times, AB, isn't it?
Absolutely. It was like there was an 11-year drought, and suddenly 2 years, and we have two ICC trophies. That feels amazing. And in fact, we were also discussing, right? Are we in the midst of a dynasty? I definitely feel we are, and there are so many more ICC trophies to be won. I feel this team is going to give us lot more trophies, and yeah,
Not
apart
many
from that.
opportunities as well for us to win ICC trophies now. Now we have won three Champions trophies if you count the 2002 one as well. So which makes us go top of the pile in terms of the Champions Trophy holders. So it's fun and exciting times to be an Indian cricket fan. More trophies, I'm sure, would come in the next few years, at least in white ball cricket. And this is going to be the focus of today's episode as well. Looking back at the Champions Trophy that got recently concluded and some dynamics around it, and what has been heard during the tournament and what has been held after the tournament. So, AB, for the benefit of our listeners and viewers, what is today's topic all about?
Yeah, so India had an absolutely dominating performance in the recently concluded Champions Trophy. Of course, we were the winners, we were unbeaten, but all of that came with an asterisk. We were playing all the matches at the same ground in Dubai. Other teams had to shuttle across different venues, play in Pakistan, play in Dubai, but we had the luxury, the convenience of playing all the matches at the same venue. And a lot of people across media, former players, raised this point that probably India had an unfair advantage. And unlike a lot of our previous episodes where we either go back way into the past or look ahead in the future, this time we are very close to the present. We are
Yeah.
analyzing a what if, which was just a week old, week 2 to 3 weeks old, and really trying to understand, did India really have an unfair advantage? So that is the topic for today.
Yeah, I mean, very interesting. Not just limited to the cricket pundits and commentators, but also on Twitter, that was a discourse that was quite closely followed before the beginning of the tournament, but now more so as India progressed through the tournament with such rampage. We were really dominant. I think this is possibly one of the most dominant displays by India in any ICC tournament in which we actually won the tournament as well. You can only compare it with Australia 2003 and 7 World Cup and how the West Indies were back in 75 and 79. So uh, rare for a team to be so dominant. And that's why the discourse became even more powerful that did India get so much advantage of being at one venue. And yeah, this is where we are going to start off. Maybe it will be nice to start off highlighting what are the specifics being mentioned off field regarding it, and then we can come to the latter segment in which we can hypothesize, as this is a hypotheticals and what ifs focused podcast, on the on ground ramifications if India were not playing at a single venue but were traveling across UAE and also maybe traveling to Pakistan. Uh, One of the first points that came into my mind when I started listening a lot of English commentators talking about it is that it isn't even the first time that a team is playing um, all their matches in the same venue. And I'm going to pick up an apple to apple comparison. 2009, the Champions Trophy was held in South Africa. A lot of Indian fans don't remember because India lost to Pakistan, Shoaib Malik century, and we don't want to remember that tournament. But South Africa were meant to play all their matches at a single ground. I think it was Centurion. The final was also supposed to be held, uh, and they did not even qualify for the latter stages. So it's not as if it's a given that a team which is meant to play um, an event in a particular location and gets that advantage. I think you were speaking about something about England's own experience in the past, right?
Absolutely. So, if we really break down home advantage in an ICC tournament, then we have to look at England's advantage over the years. 75 was the first time when a World Cup was played. That was played in England, and England probably hosted World Cups or ICC tournaments. I don't even know how many times, maybe a dozen times before they actually won it in 2019. So, is home advantage or the advantage of playing in familiar conditions really that important? Because one team in every tournament will have that advantage, and we see it's not always that team that wins the tournament. Last year, a couple of years back, 23, India hosted the tournament, was completely dominant, but then we lost in the finals to Australia. So it's not like home advantage or the advantage of playing in familiar conditions gives you that uh, that right or that unfair advantage of winning the tournament eventually. There are so many things that go into winning that tournament ultimately.
And before we come to the point of whether uh, the pitch conditions within UAE were different or Pakistan different, and did India have an advantage? Because Gautam Gambhir had very interesting comments. I want to also touch a little bit on the political aspect of it. Uh, if the member nations who hold the voting rights within an ICC decision making, ICC is effectively a event organizing company, if you think that way.
Mm.
If they were really serious about it, they could have just chucked out India out of the tournament. And yes, there would have been some hue and cry and question mark on the success and the commercial success of the tournament. But at least you would have taken a stand and be held against it. You did not take that stand. You allowed India to compete it, and then you are questioning later on. I can give you an example of this Thursday evening. I watch a lot of football, and Manchester United, an English club, was playing at home against Real Sociedad, which is a club based out in Spain. The Spanish club had a Russian player playing for them, and this team out of Spain had to travel to Manchester to play the game, and the British authorities did not allow the Russian player in the Spanish team to come and play. Now you are banning a player who is coming from like a politically aggressive country that you think as an authority, and in a team game you are not allowing that person to come and play in your country. Isn't that mixing politics with sports? Now, if another country does that in another sport, you raise question marks on it. They have done they have done the same. I mean, they decided not to travel to Kenya in the past and Zimbabwe in the past in World Cups. Okay, you paid the price in terms of points, but if you were really strong, and we have to realize the reality that India is too strong commercially. 70% of the revenue comes from India. So there's question marks on ICC's role, on the member nations' role. It's not a question truly in terms of whether India gained an advantage or not. I mean, they were dealt the hand they were, and they did well.
And
The other part is, yeah,
I also feel that's the harsh reality of the world we live in, of the sport that we so follow, and that politics and the sport are not independent of each other. They are kind of intertwined, and there are always ramifications from one part of it to the other. And there will always be those political ramifications. In the past, we have seen that in cricket so many times, and even we see it here. Ultimately, it wasn't the players' choice that they wanted to play all their
yeah,
matches in Dubai. It was something which was out of their control, and
absolutely.
they just took whatever they were given, and then they played around that.
And I think before we delve into the exact specifics, there were also that did India gain advantage by playing at only one venue? I mean, interesting comments came from Gautam Gambhir post tournament that it's not even India's home ground. They don't play matches in Dubai, first of all. So it's not as if that they have been playing and preparing for a long time and they go there. I can give you a counter example as well. IPL 2020 and 21 in the pandemic years was held in UAE. So India had big expectations going with the T20 World Cup in 20 in 21 in UAE, and they did not perform well. And there were so many things that, okay, people were drawing so much conclusions out of IPL, the pitches there and how much it will benefit India. It did not. And Apparently, Pakistan did pretty well in that tournament as well. They reached the final, while Pakistan players don't play in the IPL. So, okay, they play
Actually,
some.
Dubai
Yeah.
Dubai was like a home ground for Pakistan, right, for so many years before
Yeah, so they
international
are they
cricket
are much
returned
and
back to
and they
Earth.
took that advantage, but Indians did not. Despite playing two IPLs there. Okay, 2009 we played the IPL in South Africa and we had a Champions Trophy. What was the advantage? So a lot of questions around that. I think it will be really good now to break it down, go into really specifics. And I think we have a format on how we want to do it, AB. Let's go into the first segment. Which one is that?
Yeah, so we were thinking about how we can break things down. So we talked about everything that happened off ground, but since this is a cricket podcast and we want to remain off the topic of politics and we want to focus more about the game of cricket, so we go back to everything that was happening on ground, and we want to look at all the different benefits, all the different advantages that we can think Team India had, and then really evaluate what if we didn't have those advantages, how could things have turned differently. The first one that at least I can think of is this, is that what if Team India had to travel a bit more? So because we played all the matches in Dubai, there was no travel. The same ground, it was very convenient to just go to practice, to go to matches. There weren't many flights to take. But other teams, take for example the case of New Zealand, they played a lot of their matches in Pakistan. They were traveling around Pakistan, and then they played a couple of their matches in the UAE. So they had to travel a couple of times to the UAE and then back to Pakistan. So a lot of travel on that front. So this is the first advantage that we want to talk about and dissect really. Does it impact a team's performance in a tournament as big as the Champions Trophy? So what's your take on that, SS?
I mean, we have to look at 2023, where India was traveling throughout the length and breadth of the country. Okay, people can say that India it's still homogeneous in terms of pitch and condition. It's not. You have changing pitch and condition. India was not playing a game at the same venue. They were playing matches against different opposition, different cities. The only time they did play at the same venue was at Ahmedabad, and they lost the final there. And it came out that Australia had better understanding of the pitches. I looked at the statistics of different UAE grounds and the runs per over and the average runs per wicket. There isn't a lot of differences, of course. Okay, pitch conditions do change over time as well. Sharjah has had a lot of matches in the past, so of course the runs per over is little lower there. But if you take recent, it's pretty much in line. If India was playing hypothetically Abu Dhabi has is the biggest ground dimensions that is there in UAE. So you could argue that taking on Indian spinners would have been even harder there because you cannot clear the boundaries easily there. So within UAE, I don't think there would have been a lot of real difference in terms of Indian performance. The really interesting part is if India was to travel to Pakistan, because generally India, as we found out, India would have only played at Lahore because that was the one venue selected. India would have played semi-finals and finals there, so it would still remain one venue for India. Of course, the batting conditions would have been different because the pitches are better there for batting. But India had all bases covered in terms of batting. They had firepower, they had the chasing capability, they had the upfront um, uh, intent from Rohit. You had best world number four right now at Shreyas Iyer. And then no team in the world can compare with the five, six, and seven and eight that India have. Three all-rounders there. How many teams can afford to play three all-rounders in which two are spinning all-rounders who would still be beneficial? Only thing that I can see is India playing one pacer, maybe one of Kuldeep or Varun wouldn't have played, but I think the scores that we got to see plus 325 scores that would have been really hard to come against India, and India would have been able to chase even if India went on losing tosses as they did. So I think in terms of batting, bowling, team combination on all aspects, I feel India had the bases covered even with the current squad. If India already knew they were meant to travel to Pakistan, maybe a Siraj would have come in. Even India would have taken one lesser spinner. Judging by the performance, judging by the pitches there, I think India would have done exceedingly well, even if we were meant to travel to Pakistan. If we were staying in UAE, I think no difference to the result.
I like the points that you make, SS, and I feel this Indian squad is one of the most balanced that we have seen across the world and across the time periods that Indian team we have seen at least them play. And a very good indicator I feel of that is the bench strength that we have. Someone like Yashasvi Jaiswal wasn't even a part of the squad. He's someone who walks into any other ODI setup in the world right now. Siraj wasn't even a part of the squad again, and he's a world class bowler. I think Siraj has taken the most number of wickets in ODIs in the last 3 4 years for a
Yeah,
seamer, I believe, and he's not even a part of the squad. And yeah, of course, I agree that if we had to play across different conditions, the squad setup would have been a bit different. Maybe Varun
yeah,
Chakravarti wouldn't have found his way in, but
yeah,
then just look at who the replacement could have been. It would have been Mohammad Siraj, and then don't forget, Jasprit Bumrah was injured, and
yeah.
this was the bowling attack that we had, even without the best bowler, best player, best cricketer in the world right now.
A
When
couple of more things there as well. I mean, India did start off playing Harshit Rana, and he did enough damage in the fag overs versus Pakistan, and we won that game as well. Maybe if the tournament was happening in Pakistan solely, then he would have played a bigger role. So even if we don't look outside the squad that went, you still had coverage in terms of Rana. Washington Sundar is like in any other country, he would be playing each and every white ball game as your primary and only bowling all-rounder. But he cannot because you have got two greats actually in white ball game now, Ravindra Jadeja as well as Akshar Patel. So you even had that base covered that come an injury, you have Washington Sundar who can come as an off spinner because India doesn't have like a classic off spinner if you because Varun Chakravarti is more like a mystery spinner. Those are the amount of bases that India were covering. How can you compete with that?
Absolutely. And since we talk about team combination, we can't miss out on talking about Hardik Pandya. Not many teams across the world right now have the luxury of having a pace bowling all rounder like Hardik Pandya. Like, which other team can you think of? Maybe Cam Green for Australia. But again, injured right now. So, but then the overall team combination that we had was really strong, not
I
just
was
for
seeing
UAE
some,
conditions.
yeah, I was seeing some ratings by a newspaper about ranking Indian players out of 10. And I saw Hardik at 6 out of 10, one of the lowest. And I was like, I mean, he was the one person that was targeted by Australia and New Zealand in the semi-finals and finals. Before that, he did pretty well. Whenever he came on to bat to try to just accelerate and try to give in, he was doing pretty well. So when your lowest rating is 6 and he's still giving so much contribution, despite no help from the pitch, he's acting as your second pacer. He's not in an ideal condition. You have Arshdeep Singh or Harshit Rana, and then he's a third pacer. I mean, this gives kudos to how Indian team management, Indian bench strength, and how India goes deep into that. I wouldn't say that it would have made a lot of difference in any other conditions.
So, SS, we have talked about two factors so far. We have talked about the different grounds, the different situations that India could have found themselves in, different conditions. We have also spoken about the team combination and what implications there could have been for the Indian team in terms of combinations that they would have had to play in those different situations. But then let's also talk about the implications for all the other teams in the tournament. So, how would they have fared had they not played India in Dubai, but say in some other conditions? What's your take on that?
I think one interesting point is that modern teams and modern players are used to traveling and used to playing in different conditions. Even across IPL, they travel a lot. When they play test matches, they play in different conditions in their countries, even though there is some variability. There is always some variability. Uh, in the Indian group, the teams that you had, they already had an experience of playing in Abu Dhabi. Okay, there was a switch over that they had to make, but the best teams would always be able to make a switch over. And pre-tournament, you would have also guessed that India and New Zealand were the favorites, anyways, to go to the semifinals because New Zealand had won the triangular series. They had won it convincingly. They were very strong against Pakistan in Pakistan. So even if all the matches were happening in the same situation, New Zealand would have still progressed, in my opinion. So it had no bearing on them till they reached the final, where they did everything right. It was just that they had a case in which team was overperforming basis what they could perform uh, because they can only perform in a certain band. They are a percentage team. I always feel that about them. If you really put them under pressure, like make too many runs or have conditions supporting you, they will never be able to overachieve. They don't overpunch. They can punch above their weight, but not over punch. That's the thing.
I actually like the point
Yeah,
that you make about New Zealand because I feel they did everything that they could have, right? Just
yeah,
imagine
yeah.
their spinners bowling to the best of their abilities, to the best of the conditions. Even Chapman coming in and bowling so well. He got the wicket of Kohli as well, and he made the Indian batters struggle in those middle
Ah,
overs,
Bracewell,
right?
you mean Bracewell?
Yeah, sorry, Bracewell. He came in and bowled so well. And we saw the catch that Glenn Phillips took. Like, how many
Yeah,
teams
they're taking
can
half
pull up
chances.
half chances? Like, I would say even bare chances they are taking, and they made a game out of it. Otherwise, the Indian team would have just
Absolutely.
flown away with the game.
They won the toss, and also most importantly, since they were in India's group, they had already played India in Dubai
Dubai.
in the same tournament 10 days back. So they had all the data to analyze. They knew the condition. They had a previous experience with the same set of players. So they had whatever they had hoped to get out for them.
And across all the teams that play the white ball format who featured in the Champions Trophy, I think New Zealand has some of the best players of spin in the squad. You start with Rachin Ravindra, Kane Williamson, Daryl Mitchell, Tom Latham. The
Yeah.
entire lineup is full of players who can actually play spin so well, and they showed that to us when they toured India for the Test series. So
Only Matt Henry was missing. He could have created some jitters on the top, but you can also argue that injury is injury. You do not have Bumrah on the other side, so it kind of balances out.
absolutely, and so you have to make a case that it was the best suited team to face India in the finals, and
So for New
even
Zealand, we can both agree that for New Zealand, traveling or conditions, they did what they reached to the max, and you could not fault traveling or conditions and India's advantage of playing in the same, saying that that was the reason why New Zealand lost. They lost because India was too good.
I remember the wickets that Indian bowlers took. Kuldeep Yadav coming in first ball to Rachin Ravindra. I mean, that was such a beautiful delivery, and I think
Absolutely.
yeah. And then coming to the next match, SS versus Australia. You think the outcome of that match could have been different?
This is the only game and this is the only team where you can have a rational argument, and I would be humble enough to take somebody's opinion that this was one scenario where the relative comfort with conditions played a role. India playing at the same ground, India basically having their first 11 available to them minus Jasprit Bumrah versus a team who was playing test match cricket in February in Sri Lanka, had to add an additional ODI so that they can get some practice before coming to Champions Trophy in Sri Lanka, didn't have their first choice fast bowlers available, even Mitchell Stark pulled out, played all their group games in Pakistan, but had two of their games washed off essentially, like at least from midway perspective. The one game they won, they had to rely on Josh English creativity and brilliant innings. So they were the most undercooked in all aspects coming to the semi-finals and not having exposure. You can also argue that that was a benefit for them because they hadn't anyways accommodated or acclimatized to Pakistani conditions by the time the semi-final came. They just turned up
I
in the semi-finals.
I in fact feel that playing in Dubai played into the hands of Australian team because they had such a depleted seam bowling attack
True.
with
Yeah.
the big three all injured and pulling out. That had the match been played in a more seam friendly condition, then Indian spinners would have actually trumped Australian seamers. So I believe that playing in those conditions actually was more favorable for Australia, and we also saw that in the match, right?
Absolutely. And tactically and strategically, Australia were very solid. Um, they did their best. If Steve Smith had held on to play a little longer and given Carey a bit support, they might have made 280 to 90, and that would have been really difficult to chase for India. India had moments where, there were question marks in the chase. Kohli was going really well. I think that was his greatness. Uh, I also feel Australia had enough spin bowling options as well available for them. And you can also argue that semi-finals, first innings, Shami had a big role to play. He was the wicket taker who took the most important wickets. Of course, it was built on the pressure the spin bowlers put on the Australian batters, but he was a big difference maker. That's the only game where we can say that if Australia had an exposure of playing in UAE before one game and then coming, or if India was playing mix and match in both Pakistan, maybe the encounter might have been even more closer. But in terms of the strength of the teams and how Indian team has been going around, even in the England series as well, I would still say 60% India would have still won the match. But this is the only game where the topic of today comes to the question that maybe India, in 4 out of 10 cases, might have lost the semifinals to Australia. I don't think so. I will still back India to win. But this was one moment where it could have gone really close.
Yeah, completely agree with you. And then one more match which I really want to talk about is the first major match that India played in the tournament, which was against Pakistan. Pakistan supposedly, you can say Dubai is like a home ground for Pakistan, right? Like Pakistan,
Used
the
to play a lot of
conditions,
games there.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, and the conditions suit them the most out of all the teams that are playing in the tournament. And you would say that Pakistan has a good lineup, right? They have the
Yeah.
batters to play in those conditions. They have the bowlers to deliver in those conditions. But we saw how one-sided that match got, and every
And
time,
again, and that has nothing to do with Indian team getting to play because that was the first game. India hadn't traveled, Pakistan hadn't traveled much. India was still looking to find the best combination because they don't play in UAE that often. Pakistani players do play a bit more than Indian players there.
and when you talk about the combination, Varun Chakravarti wasn't even playing that match. It was
Yeah,
Harshit Rana
Harshit
who was
Rana
in the
was,
squad.
yeah, exactly. So, and Pakistan, and as we have mentioned a couple of times, India kept losing all the tosses, so it was being like equalized, the entire thing. Pakistan won the toss. I think the problem was that Pakistan team itself was not doing that great. I think the batting is not looking good. They were not doing well even in Pakistani conditions. They did not win the triangular trophy at home as well. I think the thumbs up being shown by me is essentially a thumbs up to New Zealand. They were so dominant in that tournament. So Pakistan in totality, they had a good series win in Australia down under, remember, at the latter part of the year. But I think in these conditions, they were not playing their best cricket. Even if they won the game, I think India would have qualified. And come the final, India would have been in a better place. Maybe if Pakistan somehow, because they also lost the game against New Zealand as well. So it's not as if that game was the bigger problem. The bigger problem for them was losing to New Zealand because they were anyways not the favorites going into the India game, and the result came out to be that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, one more point which I want to make at this point of time is another indicator of a great tournament winning team is the number of match winners you have in the team, the number of people
Yeah.
who stood up at different points of time in the tournament to win you matches, which is something which really demarcated India from all the other teams that you see in the tournament. Uh, for example, Rohit Sharma playing those crucial innings, Shubman Gill playing that one innings, Kohli just completely acing the run chases, Shreyas the most consistent number four across all the teams. KL Rahul stepping up when it was most required. You just go across the lineup and everyone played their part to the team. No other team has had that, right? So you really can create a case that it was really the Indian players who were stepping up in those crunch situations that really won us those matches against all the other teams.
And I think it's also a matter that Rohit Sharma has been quite, I mean, they have come out really strong after the disappointment in the home World Cup. Indian white ball cricket is in very good hands. There are a lot of match winners, young players coming through. Um, And you can see that in the preparation as well, we are playing the right number of ODIs and right number of T20s before any ICC event. And this time we were in good preparation mode versus England as well. And I think all players are standing up. So yeah, I mean, it was actually very difficult to see India losing a game before starting the tournament, and but to deliver it, it has been quite impressive. And the reason is the amount of match winners that even if couple of two or three of them stand up in those conditions, it will be massive. And Varun Chakravarti is like the latest one that we found about.
So, SS, with everything that we have discussed about the implication on team combination, the implication of different grounds and conditions, what the other teams brought to the tournament. What is your final verdict? Did playing all matches in Dubai give India an unfair advantage? And if we didn't have that, would the result of the tournament have been any different?
It was a fair advantage to start off. I will not even call it unfair because Indian team hadn't chosen that advantage to be theirs. But the losing the toss kind of equalized it first of all for me. Uh, India played teams who had played in Abu Dhabi, sorry, in Dubai, in the big matches, at least in the final. Except the Australia game, I don't see any other game where the result would have been any different. And even Australia, I would say that odds on India would have won even that game. So I don't think anything you can take away from this Indian team. An Indian team would have won this tournament even if they were traveling across venues in UAE or even playing in Pakistan. I think in totality, India were the strongest team pre-tournament and post. We have already known it. So I don't think the result would have been any different.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. And first things first, we have to, as you very rightly mentioned, this was an advantage that the team didn't select for itself. It was because of all the political ramifications. And so, if
Yeah,
we keep that separate, and if we look at only the cricketing prowess, then this is one of the most dominant teams of the recent times, and not just in spin friendly conditions but across all kinds of conditions. We have seen across the last three ICC tournaments, Indian team has just lost one match, right? So 23 out of 24 matches is what we have won. We have played across different conditions in India, in US, in the West Indies, and now in the Middle East, and we have actually delivered across all these kinds of conditions. And we
we
also
have been
spoke
super
about.
dominant. We've been super dominant when we went down to South Africa to play T20 I series as well. So we have been winning a lot of white ball games across the world. And I was really nice to see that till the run up to the next World Cup, we are going to play 9 series across the world. So it will be just a nice thing to back all this tournament victories with that we are dominant all across the world. But I'm pretty sure that we will win bulk of those series.
Yeah, so unfair or fair, but we did deserve to win this tournament, is what both of us feel. India was
Yeah,
the favorites walking into the tournament, and they walk away with the trophy.
absolutely. So this was our homage to the Indian victory in the Champions Trophy with the jersey on, India blue, as well as discussing about and dismissing all theories that India may not have won the trophy if they did not have this advantage. We don't think so. So this was our episode. We will be back with another episode next week. This time might be looking at a different format and a different form of the game altogether. And yeah, keep listening, keep giving us feedback, and we will be back next week. Bye bye.